We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis, James Fegan, and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Rob, and welcome to a new Sox Machine podcast episode. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and it's Wednesday night, September 18th, 2024, as we bring you a new episode. The Chicago White Sox were so close in winning their first road series since May, as they had a 1-0 lead going into the 8th inning. A no-name reliever coughed it up for the White Sox, as the Angels ended up tying the game, and then eventually went on to win as the White Sox were walked off in the 13th inning. So that's another series loss, as the White Sox are now 36 on 117 with 9 games left. Thanks to their 16-59 road record this season, many are thinking the White Sox will suffer their 120th loss of the season this upcoming weekend in San Diego. In this podcast, we'll recap what happened in Anaheim as finally someone passed Paul DeJong in the home run leaderboard, preview the White Sox and Padres series, get an update on Project 78 as the White Sox and related Midwest are still pushing for a South Loop Stadium, and take a look around Major League Baseball as the Detroit Tigers are squarely in striking distance of the Minnesota Twins for the final wildcard spot. James Fegan is off this show, so joining me is the managing editor of SoxMachine.com, it's Jim Margulis. And hello, Jim. The White Sox won on Monday in a big way, 8-4. They lost Tuesday 5-0. Another shutout. We'll talk about that by the White Sox, just one of several this season. But Wednesday, they had a really good chance of beating the Angels, and it just slipped away. And they may never win another road series this season.
Entirely possible. I mean, the Angels, I think, in their current state, are roughly equivalent to the White Sox in terms of, having some starters who have some name brand recognition like Reed Detmers and Griffin Canning, but they haven't lived up to their draft status yet, but aren't worth giving up on yet. You have like a lineup where if you haven't been following them, you might not hit on half of the first names when you see the lineup card, which was very much a case for me, like trying to fill out the first pitches and looking at the Angels tweet for the lineup card and seeing only last names, being like, oh no, like I felt like if I were on live TV, I would have been sweating profusely, just throwing out random first names, kind of like the John Mulaney what's my name sketch on SNL. Can you spot me 3 letters? And still not getting it right. So like it felt the same, and sure enough, like the last game goes, 13 innings in a game like nobody asked for. Like just like the league should have stepped in at some point and said, like, please stop it, both of you. You can resolve this through diplomacy and statesmanship rather than actually trying to play baseball because you're both bad at it. But yeah, that's kind of my feeling. And once they weren't able to get 2 runs an inning or weren't able to keep applying the pressure with 1 run, the small ball kind of blowing up on them. Yeah, it kind of felt like that was their best shot. And if they can't beat the Angels, who can they beat? And only these Angels, they should say. Like, Angels, by and large, over the course of the whole season, a better team. Angels right now in September in evaluation mode, maybe neck and neck with the White Sox for being a team that would be replacement level over the course of 162 games. But perhaps I'm just looking for any kind of, comparable team to the White Sox, because right now there hasn't been one.
The biggest benefit for the White Sox this series for me is that somebody, actually 2 people, finally passed Paul DeJong in the home run leaderboard.
That's why James isn't on this podcast. He was too ashamed for believing Paul DeJong, cannot show his face, just ducking it rather than dealing with the direct consequences of being putting all his eggs in the Paul DeJong basket.
Andrew Benintendi reached 19 homers first. He had 2 on Monday. But Andrew Vaughn had a home run on Monday. He also had a home run on Wednesday. So now he has 19 homers. So your home run leaderboard update, Benintendi and Vaughn are tied with 19. DeJong's not picking up another home run for the White Sox this season. He's currently in 3rd place by himself with 18. And Luis Robert Jr. is on his longest drought, his longest homerless drought of his career. It's now 27 games since Luis Robert has hit a home run. A bit concerning. And then Corey Lee and Gavin Sheets both have 10, which I don't think either are going to hit 10 homers in their last 9 games of the year. But please, I will not stop you if you want to entertain me.
What if they did?
It would be a great way to finish the season. We get this question often, and we just had our monthly Patreon Zoom call. So if you support us on patreon.com/Sox Machine at the $25 tier or part of our Veterans Committee, you get an opportunity to join us on a Zoom call and ask whatever is on your mind to James and Jim. And we had that this week. We had a good question from that Zoom call, Jim. Like, how is this White Sox offense going to be better, especially with your latest column on SoxMachine.com that the team is planning to cut payroll from where they started this season going into 2025. And I keep looking at Andrew Benintendi, his post All-Star break numbers, an 852 OPS. He's got 12 homers and 11 doubles in 53 games. Like, if you just doubled those numbers, if he could be a 20 to 25 home run guy for the White Sox in 2025, I have to assume it's not a huge lift, but perhaps if Benintendi could be more consistent like he has been post All-Star break, maybe, just maybe, the White Sox could get their money's worth from Andrew Benintendi in 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, I guess it depends on whether you consider like the money's worth being like the original ambitions they had for the franchise when the White Sox signed him, because like the idea of Benintendi delivering on his promise and extending the White Sox contention window into an X-core, that's obviously it's collapsed upon itself several times over. But yeah, I think there's a path for him to be just decent. And, it's unfortunate that, because of the wrist injury, because of just, whether that threw off his mechanics or whether just that was an unrelated thing of just trying to find his timing, because he didn't blame the Achilles issue on, or he didn't credit or blame the Achilles issue for his offensive numbers. He only blamed it for his defense. Otherwise, like he said, that it was just a matter of timing and figuring out toe tap or the stride, figuring out just how to keep his weight back and actually have power when he gets the barrel to the hitting zone. But yeah, it's like the idea was that he was supposed to deliver early, and then we'll see what happens after that. And not delivering early basically refutes the entire concept of the idea of signing him. So that's what I think makes it tough. And just there's no way to win the deal from here on out. I guess the winning the deal would be just finding an exit somehow, like some kind of trade that maybe it's not exciting, but maybe gets you a little bit out from under the financial commitment. And that's still possible. I don't think it's possible right now. I think there's just too much time and money. The White Sox, maybe they could send money on the way out, but also I don't know if any team wants to commit to Benintendi for that long to have him on the books. It might take another like half season at least to convince other teams that he's for real, because like if the defense isn't there, then you're really only getting him for his bats, and that seems to come and go. But yeah, I think with Benintendi and Robert, if he's able to rebound after this lost season and be more like he was last year and other seasons, there's more of an offense there. It's still not like even a league average offense, but at least there's like a power to the core that hasn't been here for most of the season, aside from like Paul DeJong's random heaters. And that's something. But I think until you see what happens with the other spots, like trying to get fewer ninth hitters or like seventh or ninth hitters, like say like if Dominic Fletcher could ever discover a form where he's an on base guy to get on base ahead of Benintendi and Robert, that might be more of an offense. Like having more hitters capable of going in the first and second spot might give you more runs to where it's like, they win more games where they allow one run through 9 innings and they don't get shut out 19 times in a season. I think that's probably the goal, to make them more watchable in the near future. And yeah, Benintendi plays a big part of that, but it's unfortunate. And just kind of besides the point that that's now the goal with Benintendi, is to just bring them back to even like 100 loss bad would be more of a just fine. Or like the way Chris Getz put it, like we wouldn't have been surprised if we lost 100 games. And now that's something to shoot for, which is I think how far they've fallen.
In his last 53 games, according to FanGraphs, Andrew Benintendi has been a one-WAR player for the White Sox. And during those 53 games, his weighted runs created plus is 138. With a 262 batting average, a 333 on base percentage, slugging 519, like I'll take that. Like if that's what I'm saying, like if Benintendi can copy and paste this type of performance that he's shown in the second half of 2024 into the first half of 2025, I think that gives you, as Chris gets to the White Sox front office, to your point, Jim, a fighting chance to possibly trade Andrew Benintendi if you need to dump more salary in the first half of 2025. But hopefully this is sustainable for Andrew Benintendi. Andrew Vaughn, in his last 50 games in the second half this year, 7 homers, 23 RBIs. It's a 751 OPS, 0.3 WAR. This is who he is. Like it's just not overly impressive. A 110 weighted runs created plus for Andrew Vaughn during the second half. So maybe, just maybe, but then again, with Benintendi, doom just seems to be right around the corner for him. Pretty much right around the corner for everyone for the Chicago White Sox. Luis Roberts' numbers are so ugly in the second half, I cannot say them on this podcast, as it would be too depressing. Speaking of depressing, let's talk about Yoan Moncada. Yoan Moncada did make an appearance in Wednesday's game. He first served as a pinch runner in extra innings, and then he had to bat for himself in the 13th inning. He struck out. And then the Angels scored at the bottom of the 13th, and that's how the Angels won in the game. And when it comes to this series, that's the only playing time Moncada had, and it doesn't look like he may get any starts for the rest of the season, that he's just a bench bat. Interim manager Grady Sizemore spoke with Daryl Van Schouwen of the Chicago Sun-Times, and Van Schouwen on Twitter shared this quote from Grady Sizemore, and Sizemore said, quote, "Still trying to get Brian Ramos and Miguel Vargas reps at third. I know we're going to have these guys next year. They're part of our future. Whereas we're really not sure how Yoan Moncada fits into our future." Jim, are the White Sox quiet DFA'ing Yoan Moncada?
Pretty much. I'm surprised by... I guess it's understandable, but I'm surprised by how many people are just, they say like, why is he still here? Why is he still around? Why haven't they DFA'd him? What's the point? And I'm thinking like, what's the point of DFA'ing him? Why not have him around if you're not playing him? Like I would say if the White Sox felt compelled to play him, like if Grady Sizemore were somebody managing for a job, I would say, no, separate Moncada from him because you need to use those at bats for Ramos and, Vargas to a lesser degree. That's how I would prioritize them. But given that Sizemore, and this is, I think, the nice thing about having Sizemore around and having somebody who's under contract for next year and will be in some kind of role with the White Sox, whether it's a coach again, whether it's in the front office, like the White Sox are committed to having him around, even if they don't, they go in a different direction with the manager and the manager picks a different staff, that he does have, he has limited leeway in terms of like who he wants to see getting at bats or, getting innings or making starts or, whatever their usage is. He has to follow orders to a certain degree, but he also has the leeway to say, I'm going to be around for next year. Yoan Moncada isn't. So what do I owe him? Like, why am I beholden to him? I'm more to serve the team that's here for next year, and Ramos will be there unless there's a trade. Vargas, same thing. And that's, I think, the nice thing. Whereas like having Charlie Montoyo in that role, if he's trying to win every game, I would feel nervous about like having Moncada out there because he theoretically is a better option when he's healthy than Ramos and Vargas. So like, I'm fine with him here. Just, I think it's weird. It's certainly like an unceremonious way to go out. And I thought the video tribute that NBC Sports Chicago played before his pinch running appearance, where it's like, welcome back, Yoan. And like, there's no round of applause, partially, it's on TV and such, but like, he's getting this big welcome back as a pinch runner in the 12th inning, and he wasn't even like the first choice for pinch runner. Corey Lee was, because he had a catch later in the inning, but nobody really wants to play him. He's just around in case disaster strikes or like in case there's another 13 inning game and you need like a third baseman, and he's more useful in that regard than like Corey Julks, but that's about it. And I'm fine with it. Like, I think, my attitude is, if he was, one of the reasons why the White Sox contention window slammed shut, even if it isn't, maybe if he actually was hurt, versus, I believe the hamstring issue was hurt, but like the anticipated soreness, that was new. The setbacks and the White Sox being very, expressing some mild frustration over the lack of updates. I wonder if they're just like, no, you're going to be here with the rest of us for the rest of the season. There's no escape. You can't go home. You have to report. We're all riding this out together, no matter how miserable it is. And, that's how they're going to do it. But I'm fine with that just because it does help the team on the bench, but also like Sizemore has clearly shown that he's not letting Moncada's brand name value or the fact that he's more proven get in the way of anything.
Yeah, low key, I am surprised that Moncada did not get a start. I figured give him some at bats, I guess, but to Sizemore's point, I just didn't think they would go all the way in this direction. Because you're right, Jim, and we've had this argument even with Ramos and Vargas. I think Ramos should be getting the at bats at third base for the rest of the season, and I know you agree, Jim, because Miguel Vargas continues to not be impressive at all at the plate. And I have very serious concerns about Miguel Vargas and his ability to be a major leaguer. Like, in my opinion, at this moment, going to 2025, Vargas is going to Charlotte. I would not have him anywhere near the major league team. He just hasn't shown he's a major leaguer despite having this extended run by the Chicago White Sox, and it makes me really worried about this trade that the White Sox made in the middle of the season. So I'm very much Brian Ramos should get all the playing time at third base, but I figured they would give Moncada a start as professional courtesy, Jim, and as a thank you for all your service to the Chicago White Sox over the years. But maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe they feel like no courtesy is owed. No courtesy is owed. This last home series against the Angels next week at home. It's the final 3 home games of the season. Do you think Moncada even gets a start then? I don't know. Like, White Sox fans didn't get a chance to say goodbye to Jose Abreu. Didn't get a chance to say goodbye to Eloy Jimenez. Didn't get a chance to say goodbye to Dylan Cease. I guess it just kind of fits with the theme. Not going to get a chance to say goodbye to Yoan Moncada. Moncada, thank you for 2019 and a 4-war season of 2021. Best of luck. Because that's what it just seems like.
Yeah, I mean, like he wasn't bad. He just wasn't good. Or like he wasn't good when it counted. Like he had that 4-win season, but one of those 4-win seasons that's hard to duplicate in terms of like, if you're not hitting for a ton of power, and he strikes out as much as he does, can you sustain the OBP? Can you provide that much defensive value, year over year? Just, some of it comes down to chances and, whether you make all the plays. And since then, it's just been tough for him to walk that line and stay healthy enough to, be a threat and punish pitches enough to draw walks. And yeah, it's just been a slow slide. And yeah, I just wonder, I'm kind of removed from, I guess how much the average White Sox fan cares. Cause I'm not, you're at the park. I'm not, in terms of just how many jerseys you see around, what kind of reception players get. But I just wonder, like, if anybody, wants to see him again, or just, if he's on the bench, doesn't matter. Rather see Ramos, all 3 games, or Vargas all 3 games. And yeah, I think it's fine. Like, I think it's, a fitting way to go out, just because, like, it is, the White Sox were attached to him. He wasn't the only one they were attached to in terms of like their fortunes. Like, they were attached to Tim Anderson being healthy and producing in his very unusual way. They were attached to Luis Roberts staying healthy, and Eloy Jimenez staying dynamic, and all of them failed to do so. So they all are culpable. And it's hard to, I think, assign like an order in terms of who was the most culpable, but I think Moncada has he has a case for being number one, just because of just how unable he was to post in his best form over the last 3 years.
Hey, Sox Machine podcast listeners, would you like an extra $500? Go to bluewirepods.com/survey and complete the Blue Wire audience survey about you and your podcast listening habits for a chance to win a $500 gift card. This survey will help create a better advertising experience for audiences and in turn help this show. That's bluewirepods.com/survey, where all you have to do is answer some simple questions for a chance to win $500. Make sure to read the full terms and disclaimer, plus complete the survey for a chance to win. Again, the website is bluewirepods.com/survey. The White Sox in this series against the Angels were shut out again. They've been shut out 19 times. If you're wondering, what is the franchise record? It's a lot. But since the mound has been lowered to its current height back in 1969, the 1976 White Sox were shut out 21 times. So the White Sox get shut out 2 more times in their last 9 games. They'll tie the most since the current mound height. They get shut out 3 more times, which might happen this weekend against San Diego. Then it's the most that we've seen since the mound has been lowered. Jim, can this 2024 White Sox squad catch the 1976 White Sox in most shutouts?
I think they can, especially if Detroit has something to play for in the final weekend.
Yeah.
Like, if Detroit, one way or another, if they've locked in a spot, then perhaps you get enough low leverage guys out of order or starters on a shorter workload. But if they are playing like with like Skubal to like dominate, and they need their best relievers in the best spots, then I could see 1 shutout if needed over those last 3 games.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the White Sox do get to 21, which, getting shut out 21 times in 162 games is amazing. But the follow-up, Jim, are you surprised the White Sox have not been no-hit or perfect game this season?
I mean, I would say I'm not surprised, just because it's hard to be no hits, and it's hard to throw a no hitter. Like, guys you think would throw a no hitter can. It just takes a lot of luck, and the White Sox have enough contact guys, and they have enough guys who run well enough to where you can fluke into infield single or something like that. They don't strike out tons, so they do have batting average on balls in play on their side to like eke out 1 hit over the course of 9 innings. So I guess I would say I'm not surprised, but I'd also like, I don't think it qualifies as knocking on wood, because ultimately, like, I don't know if I care about whether they get through no hit. Like, it's something to watch if you see a no hitter. That it's still possible, still in play. They had one, they were close to one a few weeks ago. So like, yeah, it's a case of can't rule it out. A lot can happen. It's one way the White Sox haven't lost yet, and given their dedication to exploring all the possible ways to lose over the course of the season, that would be one of them.
Watch they get no hit on the final day. Got it in at the last minute.
Well, and like a bullpen one, like a bullpen no hitter. So it's like the least satisfying. Like nobody brags about being at like a complete, a combined no hitter, especially if it's like 7 guys doing it.
What's up, everybody? It's Heisman Trophy winner Matt Leinart. I've got a podcast called Throwbacks with actor Jerry Ferrar, where we'll be talking all things sports, but also so much more. We'll give you the behind-the-scenes stories from my days as the quarterback on an iconic college football team to Jerry's days as a star on an iconic TV series. So subscribe to Throwbacks wherever you download your podcasts and follow us on all social media at Throwback Show.
Well, that's what the White Sox did in Anaheim. Meanwhile, in Chicago, the White Sox business was busy. Along with their friends, Related Midwest, they had a event closed to the press in which they invited VIPs and Illinois politicians to play catch, field some grounders on that pop-up baseball diamond that we talked about in the South Loop, the Project 78 location. They even got a little cruise in the Chicago River. And there was a good follow-up story from the Chicago Tribune writer Jeremy Gorner. And Jeremy Gorner got this quote from Illinois House Speaker Emanuel Chris Welch. And House Speaker Welch said, quote, "It was a great presentation on their part regarding the White Sox and Related Midwest. But the reality is we still represent the taxpayers of the state of Illinois, and they have to change the environment to convince the taxpayers of the state of Illinois that it's a good idea to have taxpayers pay for a new stadium. And nothing yesterday that I'm aware of changed that environment," end quote. So despite having Bo Jackson, Frank Thomas, Ozzie Guillen, and of course, Ron Kittle at the event, the Illinois politicians are still not convinced about giving public dollars to the White Sox for a new stadium in the South Loop. Jim, are the White Sox putting their entire future, and I do mean like the business, baseball ops, what they want to accomplish in the next 5 years, in this South Loop basket? And if so, what happens if Jerry Reinsdorf doesn't get what he wants?
I would say that they're not putting all their eggs in the basket because like Related Midwest seems to be doing a lot of the work. So if the White Sox were on their own or trying to forge partnerships at this point to see like what are possibilities, whether in Chicago or outside it, I would say in the Chicagoland area. I'm not saying like, relocation. I could see them being more open to different ideas and exploring like, kind of like when they did the Addison plot in the 80s, just looking for different options, floating things out, seeing if there are any bites, seeing if there are any municipalities that are willing to play ball, kind of like the Bears have done with Arlington Heights and Naperville and whatnot. I could see them doing that. I think because Related Midwest is there with them, champing at the bit to get something done. I do think that's why you're seeing it being this insistent. And, the White Sox were riding shotgun for, I would say, like the first several months of this plan being presented. Like the renderings were Related Midwest, all of the White Sox were not speaking on the record about it. And so that's why, like, I'm not sure. Yeah, I know they'd love to get it done. I just don't know, like, if this is a case where they feel this is their best bet by having a partner who's actively lobbying with them. So it's not the 117 loss White Sox trying to get public money. Like if they were going by themselves, I think they might pick a different time or pick a different tack. Maybe not go, being so insistent for city money versus like, suburban money. So that's why I think like I still want to know exactly like what the percentages are in terms of like who wants this more, the White Sox or the Midwest, when it comes to actually like, should dollars be discussed in a meaningful sense? Like who's willing to put up more money to make it happen? And, if they're both asking for like 90% public funding, it doesn't seem like that's going to be, likely for either of them. But like, say if like the state was willing to play ball or say like, no, maybe, we'll go 30-70, and would the White Sox then step up more, would a related Midwest step up more? This is just an entire cash grab, and they're just looking for 90-10 or 100-0 and taking their ball and going home if nothing happens.
Yeah, again, to talk about player payroll getting cut in 2025. A 117 lost White Sox team with 9 games left to go. So 125 losses is definitely within striking distance. The reaction instantly online was, you can pay for it. If you want it this bad, you pay for it. Not taxpayer money. Like, nobody's got the appetite for this. And we're going to hear more about this in the next couple of months. Word out of Springfield is the White Sox and related Midwest post-presidential election will begin lobbying again their efforts to drum up interest and support and getting some type of public aid to build a new stadium to be the anchor for this project. But if the White Sox don't get that, I also figure in the next couple of months here, Jim, that they're going to stay steadfast in their belief that they cannot field a winning team in Bridgeport. That Bridgeport does not support them financially well enough for them to spend at the level to keep up with the quote-unquote big boys.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the laziest answer, and Reinsdorf often chooses the laziest course for all of his actions. So yeah, it fits.
The team 90 minutes north, the Milwaukee Brewers, clinched the National League Central today. As we record this, they lost their manager, who got the largest contract ever for managers in baseball history. And the Brewers still won the National League Central, even without their highest paid player, and Christian Yelich, who's got serious back issues now. Despite all that, they still won the National League Central easily. Nobody's hearing it. Nobody's hearing the White Sox excuses on their business ops, their excuses what's happening on the field. This could get ugly. This offseason can get uglier than we are expecting. Like, there could be a certain level of apathy, Jim, inching closer to this offseason about the White Sox. Like, I don't care. The season is finally over. Bless the baseball gods. But I figure that there's just going to be more and more news from the White Sox that are irrationally, or rationally, I should say, make White Sox fans angry at them about not only their position on the field in the near future of what the team's going to do playing baseball, but the way they operate and handle their business.
Well, especially since Kansas City is in the division. Like, they're not competing in the AL East or the NL West or the NL East. They're competing in the AL Central, which, you know, all the other teams in the division are Bally Sports teams. They've been dealing with broadcast uncertainty, and like the Twins were in a position to step on the gas and really add their team and separate themselves from the division. They didn't, or couldn't justify it to the, their own operating board. And so they took a chance on kind of running it back with the same amount of investments or even like a slight cut. And now they're in danger of dropping out of the wild card race because they just don't have enough going for them. You look at Kansas City, who lost as many games the White Sox did last year. Like, we're in the same neighborhood of being awful. They had they had a GM transition that was an internal hire. They had a stadium push that went nowhere for a new relocation site and state funds. And, they're looking like they're postseason bound, like a massive turnaround, like one of the biggest turnarounds year to year in baseball history. So, I mean, like, there are examples all over the place of like why Bridgeport isn't holding them back, and how the White Sox have squandered like a really good broadcast deal and, their visibility, their brand, everything like that, because of just how they're run. And just reaching for Bridgeport and saying that's the reason they can't contend, or guaranteed rate field is the reason they can't, is just, it's insulting, and nobody should have it. And it does get to the point that if the chairman of the White Sox is just insulting the fan base and insulting the neighborhood, why invest? It's an abusive relationship at that point. You're like being negged almost of like, you can't support us. You're lucky I'm still here. You're lucky I'm still with you. And like,
no, we're not.
Are you? Am I still lucky you're with me? Like, so that's why I think like, yeah, it does get dangerous in terms of just how detached they can be and just how they run the risk of really pushing White Sox fans away to where like nobody cares. They will, there is a care. I think like the red line is if they move out of Chicagoland, that'll break a lot of hearts and make people angry. But like everything in between, like you're watching it right now, they're going to break the record for most losses in a season in modern Major League history. And fans are kind of rooting for it at this point. Like there's no pride or passion or tradition that they're really rooting for. It's just like, yeah, make a big mess of it. Like have it be on everybody's record. That's what we want to see, just because like you can't, no matter how much they want to blame Bridgeport or the stadium or White Sox fans, attendance, etc. Like nobody's been ever this bad. And that speaks to just how, massive the failure is and how big of failures they are at a front office level, ownership level, everything.
Yup. Then again, there have been some ex-White Sox employees, Jim, in the past have said that you and I are too naive when it comes to our takes about the way the White Sox handle baseball operations. Yeah. Yeah, just a great situation all around. But that whole marketing thing, the whole dick pic analogy, why was there a baseball diamond being built? Why is Roger Bossard out there? Now we know. And out of all that effort and energy that Related Midwest and the White Sox put into it, it didn't move the needle at all. Not a shocker. This series preview segment is sponsored by Game Time. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices in the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and views from your seat, along with their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. The Chicago White Sox are on the road this weekend, visiting San Diego. Hot ticket if you are in San Diego. This is the final home series for the Padres, and they've been selling out a lot of games. If you're out there to watch the White Sox and still need tickets, check out Game Time for last-minute deals. You could also use Game Time for shows and concerts. Game Time has tickets for Will Ferrell's show on October 26th. Billie Eilish is coming to the United Center on November 14th. And this weekend, if you didn't go to San Diego and still in Chicago, Riot Fest tickets are still available. Of course, the Chicago Bears have started their season, and Game Time has deals for the September 29th home game against the Los Angeles Rams. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our promo code Sox Machine for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use our promo code Sox Machine for $20 off. Game Time. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. For the White Sox, they continue playing baseball. They head to San Diego. And the Padres. What a team. They are playing some great baseball. They're 21 games above 500 now. They're 87 and 66. If the Padres were in the American League Central, they'd be neck and neck with the Cleveland Guardians, leading the division. But because they're in the National League West, they're still 3 games back of the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Padres would be the current number 4 seed in the National League. They just beat the Houston Astros on Wednesday, a great pitchers duel. We'll talk about that in a second here. In their last 10 games, the Padres are 6-4. Very strong team at home. This is their last home series of the season. They are 42-36 at Petco. Your pitching probables for this series. The Padres are still getting organized on who they're going to be starting. We are expecting Joe Musgrave and Yu Darvish to start over the weekend against the White Sox. But for the White Sox, Friday night at 8:40 p.m. Central Time, Garrett Crochet will take the ball. Saturday at 7:40 p.m. Central Time, it'll be Chris Flexen. Sunday at 3:10 p.m. Central Time, it will be Sean Burke, who had a very impressive start again at home earlier this week. No Dylan Cease against the White Sox this weekend, Jim, because Cease pitched on Wednesday and he outdueled Framber Valdez. Cease went 8 1/3 innings, only allowed 2 hits, no runs, no walks, 5 strikeouts on 103 pitches. This trade has worked out wonders for the San Diego Padres. They got the ace that they were looking for or hoping for from Dylan Cease. And I have a feeling, Jim, that Cease once again is going to finish second in a Cy Young voting. But this time, he's going to finish second to another White Sox great in Chris Sale, which, why not torment us more?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy for Cease. Like speaking of players posting, like he made every start. Like Drew Thorpe has been on the injured list more than Dylan Cease was during his White Sox career, especially like in the major leagues. Like I think he spent a little bit of time on the IL in the minors, perhaps, but like he's taken the ball every single time, even in his uneven rocky start to his major league career where his fastball was cutting too much and he didn't have the slider yet. Like he still took the ball every time. They had to take the ball out of his hands and say somebody else needs to pitch in the postseason, but like he was healthy and able to. And so it's cool to see him, keep doing that. And difficulty of talking about Cease during the winter and the spring and trying to figure out his trade value was they did have kind of a down year in 2023. And my standpoint was that the White Sox could still drive a hard bargain, or at least a firm bargain, because he was able to pitch every 5th day and was able to strike a lot of guys. And even if his fastball is down a little bit, like he still had the slider, still had multiple ways to attack hitters. And I think it would be disappointing if, the White Sox traded Cease and then he falls apart, because like that's the risk. Like that's why teams don't want to trade for pitchers, is because they can get hurt. And if you have enough instances where pitchers fall apart, like why would you ever trade for a pitcher? And then if you're the White Sox and all you have is pitching to trade, why would you give up fair value for those pitchers? So I think it's in the White Sox interest for Cease to not crumble, because I think you need instances of teams being rewarded for adding quality proven pitchers. So that's why I'm happy to see him continuing to, find that, gear of being a runner up and, eclipsing 180 innings and 200 strikeouts, all the good benchmarks. And I would have liked to see him pitch against the White Sox just because, one, I like watching him pitch, and two, I don't mind, the White Sox having to look at what they wasted. I think that has to be made abundantly clear to everybody, just how much they squandered. Like Chris Getz was talking about appearances. I think it was his, not the John Triffin interview, but I think it was the start of the homestand scrum where he talked about, didn't know what they'd be able to spend and what the resources will be and how they're going to be struggles, but the struggles will make it all that much sweeter. And just like, man, it's hard to talk about like the White Sox reaching a finish line when we don't still know like how far they're going to sink. This probably looks at the bottom, but if they spend another year in the 110 plus loss thing, like that becomes its own problem. So I think, Chris Getz should be aware of like that Dylan Cease was a really good pitcher that he traded away, and they only had to trade him away because everything failed and he was part of the administration that failed. So all for Cease doing well, all for Chris Sale doing well. Like I'm happy to see Sale looking like the unanimous Cy Young winner, because I think it's what his resume needs to get serious Hall of Fame consideration, and good for them.
The San Diego Padres offensively are really, really heating up. In the last 13 games, Manny Machado, 6 homers. Fernando Tatis Jr., 5 homers. Machado, Tatis, rookie Jackson Merrill, who's having a terrific season. Jerks and Profar out of nowhere. And Luis Ariz. All 5 of these guys have an OPS over 900 in their last 13 games. So not only are the White Sox facing a team that's very good at pitching, the San Diego Padres, they are facing an offense that's clicking right now. This weekend can get ugly. Ugly for the White Sox if Garrett Crochet and Chris Flexen and Sean Burke do not bring their A game. Like, this could be one of those games where Crochet's knocked out in the second inning, Jim, because he's thrown 54 pitches and Machado and Tatis have already tagged him for home runs. This could be a really, really ugly weekend for the White Sox.
As a White Sox fan, yes. For somebody rooting for the White Sox, yes. For a baseball fan, like I'm looking forward to seeing good players. Like after this Angel series, like having it being pretty talent deficient on both sides, like
need a palate cleanser.
Yeah, palate cleanser. So like I don't mind like watching a good offense do some work, and I don't mind like watching like say if Sean Burke steps up and delivers like a quality starter, like 5 decent innings against a good lineup, like good for him. Like that's a feather in his cap. So I mean, as much as it looks stacked in San Diego's favor, there are some, especially on the pitching side, like guys who can come away with a confidence builder saying like, hey, I stood in 2 times through against this lineup and got some swings and misses, even in my, my final 20 pitches. So I think that's what they can do to, get something out of the series. I think Profar is somebody somebody who will be instructive for the White Sox as they look to build their next lineup, even with like, say, the White Sox not, quote, working heavy, unquote, in free agency and not spending a lot. Like he signed for $1 million. Like he was like a February signing, end of spring training signing. Like, he's an okay hitter. Don't know where you're going to play him in the field, but like, what the hell, we need bats. So let's throw him in there and see what he does. And he's responding with an all-star season. And I think the White Sox, even if they are kind of insistent on, evaluating players or not spending a lot, like there are bargains to be had when it comes to guys who know how to draw walks and occasionally get hits. Like, Tommy Pham, he rewarded that outlook with the way he produced. So as much as they might not want to spend or invest, like there are opportunities that pop up. Profar is probably the best case of just the low risk, very, very high reward, like unfathomably high reward that they got for signing him on this deal. But there are flyers to be had, and I hope the White Sox are, open to doing so, even if it does like come at the cost of like getting Andrew Vaughn at bats or something like that, because like Profar has provided a lot more value. And if Profar were not on a team that was already contending, like he probably could have gotten a decent return, like a surprisingly good return on their $1 million investment based on how he hit in the first half and how he continues to finish the season.
San Diego is 45-40 this season against teams that are 500 or better. Are the Padres a dark horse team, Jim, to win the National League pennant?
I don't know if they're dark horse at this point. I mean, they're giving the Dodgers a run for their money. So I would say, especially with the way the Dodgers, like all the injuries they've suffered, like not getting, Gavin Stone looks like he's out, Glasnow's out. Like,
yes,
they're in the same position they were last year when all of a sudden they needed Lance Lynn to deliver important innings when he looked like somebody who was just there to, fill a rotation the rest of the way. Then, October comes around and all of a sudden he's really important. And, he's at a point in his career where he shouldn't be that important. They look like the same team. So yeah, if the Padres have a offense that's, finally as deep as it looked going into the season with Machado and Tatis, approaching the height of their powers versus one being like surprisingly Profar dependent. And you have Musgrove there, and Cease like as a top 2, and, Darvish, if he's, close to what he can deliver, then yeah, I mean, that's a good rotation. The bullpen's fine. So I can see them having as good a shot as anybody. I think it's pretty open at this point. Maybe the Phillies might be the favorites, but beyond them, I think it's pretty open in terms of like who's the second most likely. And I think even if some team upset the Phillies, it wouldn't be that great of an upset. I mean, this is what you have in expanded postseason, as you have, it becomes more and more of a crapshoot. And I think the Padres are getting great at the right time.
The Padres, after this series against the White Sox, again, it is their final 3 home games of the season. They go on the road facing the Dodgers and then facing the Arizona Diamondbacks. That's how their season ends. So they still have a division title to chase for. They're 7-3 this year against the Los Angeles Dodgers. They've already won the season series. They're 5-5 against the Arizona Diamondbacks. I don't know if they catch the Dodgers in the end in the National League West, but we are really setting the stage for what could be really exciting divisional series, interdivision series. Baltimore, New York in the division series, Padres and Dodgers in that division series.
Teams that don't like each other.
Teams that really do not like each other, which makes the postseason much more enjoyable to watch. So I'm keeping an eye on San Diego. Like, everything is starting to build in their momentum. Arizona's been really good too, so that will not be an easy series. That's going to be one entertaining series to watch. But I wonder if San Diego still has enough juice to win the National League pennant. And then in a year where expectations were lowered for San Diego and a lot of questions about AJ Preller's job status in the air, it'd be funny if this 2024 Padres squad is the one that finally breaks through and wins a National League pennant. The city of San Diego would absolutely lose their mind. That city loves the Padres now. They consistently sell out, and it'll be 44,000 plus fans at each of these games against the lowly White Sox this weekend. So it'll be a party for them. But yeah, with the Padres, I'm keeping a close eye on them, Jim. I don't know. Philadelphia's so good at home, though, this year. And if they get the number 1 seed and they have home field advantage, that still might be too tough for any team to beat them. But sign me up. If we get another San Diego-Philadelphia National League Championship Series, that was fun as hell a few years ago. That'd be fun again. And boy, I love to hear the angst in Hollywood if the Dodgers do not win another postseason series against the Padres, despite what Ohtani has done this season. That'd be something. I love the chaos. I love the drama. Sign me up.
Light it.
There's only one place you can hear a 3-time national championship winning head coach,
a Heisman Trophy winning running back and national champion,
and someone to keep everything on the tracks. Every week, Coach Urban Meyer, running back Mark Ingram, and me, Rob Stone, get into what matters most to you.
We take you inside the biggest moments in college football
while having some fun bringing you guests from all over sports and entertainment.
Watch Triple Option on YouTube or listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Speaking of chaos and drama, let's just move right along with around Major League Baseball. As we're recording this, the Detroit Tigers and Kansas City Royals are going to the bottom of the 8th inning. The Tigers are up 4-2 against the Kansas City Royals. Earlier in the day, the Cleveland Guardians beat the Minnesota Twins in 10 innings. So if the Tigers hold on, as we are recording this podcast, a little tape delay live podcasting here, Jim, the Tigers all of a sudden in the standings would be a half game behind the Twins. But really, it's 1.5 games because there are no more Game 163s, and the Twins won the season series 7-6 over Detroit. But the Tigers still have 3 home games left against the White Sox. And if we were Twins Machine, I'd be really concerned right now. I'd be really concerned that this Twins team is going to find themselves, despite finishing above 500, Jim, finishing in 4th and missing the postseason at the last minute. Do you think Detroit has enough steam to not only catch the Twins, which they have, but pass the Twins and make it into the postseason?
Well, since I've already got burned on doubting an AJ Hinch team before, perhaps I should say that, yeah, they can catch the Twins. But no, it seems like the Griffin Jack said that they're running on fumes. Like it seems like the players.
Oh, I missed that quote. Griffin Jack said that?
Yeah.
That's not a good sign, is it?
Yeah, I said it's really hard just trying to regulate your emotions and be able to almost get yourself back to a spot where you feel like you came in the inning before. But I don't have spring training to work on that. I have to do it now. I understand that we're kind of running on fumes as a staff. So they're scrambling for innings. The offense is kind of patchwork. They're dealing with injury. Like, I wonder if they know, and if they know, then that kind of tends to reflect in the scores because we've seen with the White Sox when they know that they can't talk past their shortcomings and just things pile up. So I can see the Tigers beating them because the Tigers, they're doing it with surprising talent. They're doing it with, they kind of went not for a youth movement, or they didn't do it like, punting on the season by like benching Javier Baez. Obviously that was a win now move to bench Javier Baez, but like they were in the mode of, even if our young guys don't deliver, we'll have learned something from it. They'll have learned something from it. We're okay using the last month and a half to evaluate. And those guys are helping, they're treading well enough, and the stars are helping deliver on the pitching side. So it's like, their team is designed, or their team is working as designed. So that's what I think gives them an edge, I think, over the last 2 weeks, whereas the Twins are kind of falling apart and really trying to figure out, like, on both sides of the ball, like how to hold it together. So that's why I think I would give the Tigers the nod.
The Tigers, after this game against the Royals, which, again, if the Tigers hold on as we're recording this, they would have swept the Royals in Kansas City. So that would be a huge series win. But it doesn't get easier for the Tigers. This weekend, they're at Baltimore. But the Orioles have been really struggling in their last 70 games. The Orioles are a below 500 team in their last 70. But then the Tigers finish the season at home. 3 against Tampa Bay. And, of course, those 3 games against the White Sox. The Twins this weekend, they still have more games against Cleveland. So this is a 4-game series, Monday through Thursday. So they lost tonight. They have one more game, getaway day on Thursday. This weekend, they're going to Fenway to face the Red Sox, which the Red Sox are pretty much out of it as well. So we'll see. And the Red Sox have not been a good team at home. Then the Twins finish the season at home. 3 against Miami, and then 3 against Baltimore. So the Orioles could play a factor in who makes into the wild card along with them in the American League. Meanwhile, Kansas City at home, 3 more games against the San Francisco Giants. Then they finish the season on the road at Washington and at Atlanta, which that series will be huge for both teams as they're both trying to, either Atlanta trying to get into the postseason or Kansas City hold on for dear life. So if only 2 of these teams make the playoffs out of the 3, Detroit, Minnesota, and Kansas City, Jim, which are the 2 teams you think make it?
I'm going to go with the Royals and Tigers, just because the Royals, they have these weird fits of thinking they're done, because like a couple of times now they've had some bad skids, some bad like home series losses, to where you look at them and say like, they're a year too early. Like, nice efforts, good job, but they weren't supposed to be competing. So if finishing the season with a winning record is accomplishment enough, and go get them next year. And then they dust themselves off and figure it out. And the way they've lost games is kind of brutal. Like, they've had some bullpen collapses, or they've had some like offenses going out, but they haven't been like blown out. Like, they've lost a lot of winnable games. So I think that's what keeps me thinking like, they'll be fine. I think 16-19 in 1-run games. So they've been unlucky, and they're still in a position to comfortably get into the wild card spot at this point. So I would give them the nod, and then the Tigers as well.
If the Tigers hold on and it takes to the last game, game 162, Jim, it's going to be Jason Benintendi making the call of the Detroit Tigers beating the Chicago White Sox and clinching a wild card in the American League postseason.
Good. Like, you speaking of
that's the bow that wraps around the gift that is the 2024 White Sox
speaking
season.
of things the White Sox need to understand that they squandered, that'd be another one. But no, I will be listening to those broadcasts. I have the option watching on MLB TV of like switching between broadcast feeds. Like, I've been listening to a lot of Len and DJ with the audio overlay on TV, and they've been great. And when it comes to other booths that I like, I tend to listen to them. I do some tourism when it comes to other broadcasts, and I think
great weekend this weekend with the San Diego.
So I'll
crew.
probably
They're one of my favorites.
I'll be flipping over to them. Probably going between Len and DJ and the San Diego booth. So and that's one of the benefits, I guess, of the Schriffen booth, is that I've explored a lot more broadcasts than I normally do over the course of a season. But when it comes to Detroit and the final weekend, especially if Detroit has something to play for, I will be watching Benintendi, just because like part of it is part of the knock on Benintendi was that he didn't deliver on big calls. Like, he was not somebody who got sufficiently excited or channeled the fan base's joy the way Hawk Harrelson did so well over his years. So I'm curious if he has a big call, like, what's it sound like? What would the White Sox have theoretically missed out on if they're able to win more than one division title?
Yeah, again, I think it's just the bow on the gift that's the 2024 season. If the White Sox get swept in Detroit, I think Benetti's got college football calling duties on Saturday, so you wouldn't call that game. But Benintendi making a big call about how the Tigers we all thought were dead in the water, and they kind of were, make a run in September, catch the Twins, pass the Twins in the final day, and make it into the postseason against the White Sox. Yeah, that'd be a great way. Be a great way to wrap up the 2024 season. But that's a good way to wrap up this episode of the Sox Machine podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be catching up on all the action over the weekend as we'll record a new episode on Sunday night, recapping what happened in San Diego for the White Sox and Padres. But we may actually start turning our attention more into what's happening around Major League Baseball and extend those segments as races really tying up here and heat up in the final 9 to 10 games of the regular season. A lot going on, really exciting stuff. So if you're tired of watching the White Sox, don't worry. We'll watch the White Sox so you don't have to. But continue to keep watching baseball because the baseball has been very good around the league this season. But if this is the first time you've listened to the Sox Machine podcast, you can subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts such as Spotify and Apple Music. You could also listen and watch the show on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Sox Machine. Follow us on social media. We're on all the platforms at Sox Machine. You can follow me at SoxMachine_Josh. Follow James Fegan at JRFegan. If you enjoy our work and you want full access to all of our coverage of the Chicago White Sox, sign up at patreon.com/Sox Machine. Monthly plans start at $5. You get ad-free versions of both the podcast and website. We also have additional tiers of support that give you additional perks, participate in our PO Sox segments, opportunities to join our Zoom calls. We still have some spots open in our Veterans Committee that gets you into the group chat where you have direct access and get information from James Fegan when he is at the ballpark that he is not writing up publicly. So if that's the type of insight that you want, we still have those opportunities. Again, check them out at patreon.com/Sox Machine. The Sox Machine podcast is a production of SoxMachine.com. You're for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside Jim Margulis, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.